Are you still struggling how to write observations, what words to use, and how to analyze learning? Watch this video to find out more. This document will save you a lot of time and effort. This document is called Developmental Milestones and the Early Years Learning Framework and the National Quality Standards. I have been using this document for quite some time, since it was published more than 10 years ago, and it is honestly a lifesaver. This document has been developed by the same department, DEEWR, as EYLF. EYLF number 1. So now we have the EYLF 2.0, and this is the same document that was developed along with the first version of the EYLF. So as you can see here, they do talk about EYLF and refer to children's learning as ongoing, and each child will progress towards the outcomes in different and meaningful ways. Learning is not always predictable and linear. Educator plan with each child and the outcomes in mind. As you probably know, the EYLF has 5 broad outcomes, with each outcome having sub-outcomes and many examples and strategies that teachers can use. If you are not familiar with how to use EYLF for your observations, watch my other video, which I will put in the description, link down below. But this document is another amazing document that can help you in writing observations and writing analysis of observations that you've done. I will show you how it will help. First, let's define what developmental milestones are and why are we using them. According to the theory of development that is called a maturation theory or developmental theory, you can think of Arnold Giselle, or you can think of Uwe Bronfenbrenner to some extent. You can also think to some extent about Vygotsky, but mostly Jean Piaget. The development goes through stages, and each child at each particular stage reaches certain milestones. Montessori called some of this period critical periods of development, and the brain science supports that there are some important periods in life and development of brain when children need to develop eyesight or hearing or other skills. So it is important to understand the background for developmental milestones theory or approach, that it is a developmental theory. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So developmental milestones are those important points for assessment as well, that you can see the child reached certain level of development. And usually developmental milestones are identified across 5 developmental domains. StoryKate already created a video on developmental domains, which describes them briefly, and I have a lot of quizzes that you can watch. It's in short form videos, but there are literally 5 domains that you can use: physical, social, emotional, cognitive, and can you guess? Yes, communication. So have a look at these developmental areas on the left, or developmental domains: physical, social, emotional, cognitive, and language. So each of these wonderful pages in these developmental milestones books have some examples that you will see, and they are not extensive. So if you want extensive examples of development, you may actually find more in the books such as Karen Cairns or any other books that are focusing on unpacking development, such as Burke. I prefer Karen Cairns books because they are for Certificate 3 Diploma level, and they do support early childhood teachers as well. So this is really the basics of development that we all need to know. So here you can see here that we are talking about really young baby from 0 to 4 months, and you can see that they do have some evidence of developing physically, such as they move their whole body, they squirm, They wave their arms, they move their legs up and down. It's something that you probably observed with young babies, infants. So they have some eating and sleeping patterns, but they usually are not set up yet. They have some reflexes, such as startle reflex when they wake themselves up because of some sudden noises like dogs barking or the vacuum cleaner walking on the background. They also turn their head towards the noise. They look for the mom's breast, and that's why they have sucking motion with mouth, such as feeding reflex. They respond to gentle touching well. They need cuddling, rocking, and they do like almost feel like aliens at this stage. So there are many other things that you can use for observing a very young infant at this stage, and also you can add it to your observations. On the right, from this developmental area and some typical examples of what it might look like meeting this developmental milestone, some links to EYLF outcome, such as children have a strong sense of identity, children develop their emerging autonomy, interdependence, resilience, and sense of agency. For example, they display delight and encouragement and enthusiasm for children's attempts. Yeah, that's about educators' actions. I will also show you EYLF, the new one, updated version, and outcomes that I think might be relevant to this age group and this physical domain or area. In my opinion, because infants are so tiny and dependent on human touch and responsiveness, we need to link it to the outcome 1, children have a strong sense of identity, like it did in the book, but it's also evident that children feel safe, secure, and supported. If you know that there are milestones such as turning head towards familiar sounds and enjoying cuddles and touch and other reflexes that were covered in this developmental milestone book, you can also see that at this stage children build secure relationships, right? Secure attachments with one or then other familiar educators. So this is a stage when cuddling, holding babies in a warm and supportive way is very, very important. It also mentioned that children develop or start to develop sleeping and feeding routines, and you can see here that they participate in familiar routines and rituals to make smooth transitions. So you see, combining developmental milestones document and this one, you can write really good analysis of your observations. You also can use exact formulas or phrases, and this will show your professionalism and will support understanding of child's development and show your knowledge as well. Now, if you look at the next area of development that is called social development, you can see that there are some milestones as well, such as smiles and laughs. Child make eye contact when held with face about 20 centimeters from face of an adult looking at them. They may sleep most of the time. They are alert and preoccupied with faces. So which means that we also can write it down if we notice that the baby who is 3-4 months old, that is just starting in our early childhood center or family daycare, move head to sound of voices of familiar educators or mom or parent who is speaking up, making eye contact when you hold them that close. You can write it down in your observations. And of course it links to the outcomes 3. Children have a strong sense of well-being because they develop their social connections. That's very important. But if you go back to my favorite EYLF 2.0 and outcome 1, you also will find the connections here, how children can feel safe, secure, and supported, and also how children learn to interact in relation with others, even at this young age. So you can see here that they seek and connect with adults who they trust. Maybe at this stage it's not active seeking, but it is responding to interactions, what they call serve and response in neuroscience. Let's have a look at the next outcome that are connected to emotional developmental domain, bonding. Bonding is related to attachment, which is very important part of this age group, and this stage as well of development. So you need to notice how children cry to express their emotions and cry when hungry and uncomfortable. So you can add it to your observations that little Layla cries when hungry and uncomfortable. She starts to fidget. She shows excitement when I start to prepare a bottle, right? Also, you can look at the outcome 4, children learn to resource their learning through connecting with people. So when children are hungry, they need to depend on parents and guardians and educators. So engaging in meaningful relationships at this age sometimes means sharing a bottle for 20 plus minutes. If we look at my favorite EYLF 2.0, you can find here some other important indications, such as sense and respond to a feeling of belonging, and participate in family rituals to make smooth transitions, build secure attachments. Also relevant, seek and connect with adults they trust. So this really is evident here, but you also can go a little bit down to children have a strong sense of identity, because at this age they start to demonstrate increasing awareness of their needs. Yes, so not just others, but their needs as well. And children have self-identities would be extremely relevant to these milestones, because they share pleasure while interacting with an educator, being bottle fed or breastfed by mom or some other guardian. So this is interesting how they reach out to communicate with trusted educators, even if it's about meals or being changed or feeling sleepy. So we need to unpack these outcomes because they are brought to the age group that we are working with. So see how this all connected. And cognitive milestones would be, again, smiles and laughs. You would say, oh, but it was an emotional outcome and social outcome. Why do we come back to it? Because cognitive development is a development of memory, thinking, brain in general, and it is also through development of emotions and moral thinking. So it starts as early as birth. Yes, so children develop slowly and they do start to look for patterns, look at edges. If you want to learn more about this stage of development, how infant studies, research, children understanding of space, it's also quite interesting and more amazing. So you can see that might repeat actions but unaware of ability to cause actions. If they knock something accidentally, they don't know that they did it. So that's why at this stage it's really more like chaotic and not organized. But if you put a baby on bed, they kind of crawl towards the edge of this bed and they might fall because they are still not aware, or they might stop. And this milestone, when they start to understand that there is a change between surfaces, you can see and document in your observations. Now let's move on to another age group, just to show you how it could be done as well. Let's say we will look at toddlers, or let's say 10 months old child. So here, and I will show you not just the developmental areas. There would be different milestones because children start to pull themselves to a standing position. They might start sitting without support. They might stand by pulling themselves up using furniture. These are the words you can use in your observations. But I'm going to show you the observations that are jottings. Yeah, and we can look at them and see if we can link them to our developmental milestones. 10 months old Vasanti could not reach the ball he wanted when standing up over the basket. So he sat down and pulled the basket up to reach it. So let's have a look at our physical development. So he stands by pulling themselves using furniture. No. Does he sit without support? Yes. Does he raise himself to sitting position. No, he was the opposite, sitting down from standing position, which also is related to these physical developmental areas. Pick up and throw small objects. So this child is interested in the ball and he couldn't reach it. So this shows us how he able to pick up and be interested and engaged in the object, successfully reach out and grasp toys. So this is what you will add, not just to your observations that I wrote, but also to the analysis. And you can link it to the outcome number 3, children develops a strong sense of well-being, and in particular, increasing responsibility for their own health, physical well-being when they engage in increasingly complex sensory motor skills and movement patterns. In our case, reaching out, sitting down, pulling the basket. Yeah, that's how easy it is, guys. Now let's have a look at another observation that is done by me as well. Here we have Tom, who is 12 months, for the same age group. We have been encouraging Tom to use a spoon at mealtime today, and he was quite successful and spilled very little. So what do you think about this age group? So that's on the borderline, this age group and next one. We can find out where the child sits developmentally, and we can find the relevant words for describing that. So since the child is able to feed himself, so hold the spoon, we can look at successfully reach out, grasp toys, sits without support. Yeah, maybe when he self-feeds, he sits without support. Also transfer objects from hand to hand. We haven't observed this, but if he was able to move the spoon from one hand to another, that would be the evidence of that. Pick up small objects. So the spoon is a small object, so a child is able to pick it up. Yeah, holds biscuit or a bottle, in our case a spoon, so then physical development is evident. Grasp spoon in palm, but poor aim of food to mouth, and that's exactly what we see. Maybe when they will get tired, they will start using hands to feed themselves, yeah? And you can see that this will give you those words for describing and analyzing this observation. So we can add analysis that Tom takes increasing responsibility for his own health because he is engaged in increasingly complex sensory motor skills movement patterns, attempting to self-feed and grasp spoon by 12 months. Here you can see that, and he was quite successful. So his aim of food to mouth is pretty good. Yeah, we can add that to our observations. Let's have a look at another observation that I have for, let's say, 2 years old Julie. So let's move on to the next one, 1 to 2 years old. And we have developmental milestones for the same domains and areas. And we have Julie. Julie drew a variety of shapes. Almost every circle drawn was a closed shape. She scribbled a separate black line across the top and told me it was her name, Julie. So for 2 years old child, wow, that's very advanced, I know that. But let's check. So drawing, where would it be? Tries to use spoon, fork, squats, begins to walk, finger feeds, roll large ball, scribbles with pencil and crayon held in fist. So it seems that this child already passed this stage. So let's go to next level, which is 2 to 3 years old. And here we have able to open doors, walks in, squats to play, holds crayon with fingers. Yes, also uses pencil to draw and scribble in circles and lines. So you see that this child sits just here, but also in terms of literacy, if we look at communication skills, language, you might see that refers to self by name and often says mine, definitely. But we also see that she is able to use approximation, which is usually the next stage of development. So very advanced skills, and it's clear that this child, in terms of their outcome 3, children have a strong sense of well-being, show enthusiasm in participating in physical play, negotiating play space. No, I don't think this is relevant to us. That's why we need our EYLF. Let's look at outcome number 5. Because child was scribbling, that's where we would go. And we see here that children interact verbally, non-verbally. Children engage in a range of text and gain meaning from the texts. Yeah. Children express ideas and make meaning using a range of media. That's where we are. So child was drawing circles and their close shape, and also they told the educator that this is their name. So we can see that they express ideas and make meaning using the crayon and paper. Yeah, we also see that begin to use images and approximations of letters. In our case, it's not an approximation, but it's the first stage, because circle is the first stage of pre-writing. You can see that it is evident that the child is displaying literacy behavior because they incorporate writing approximation in play. So that's how we use this EYLF and developmental milestones as well together to understand what we see, what we observe, what we write about child's learning. We also can add that they use tools to join materials if they use them, but in our case more like a range of materials and properties would be probably relevant, but I think more like use materials to create drawing. Yeah, and interesting thing here that these examples are shown, they're not always matching your developmental milestones that you will observe, and that's why I'm showing you 2 documents to be sure that you understand how to use it. So let's say you observe these children who are over the age of 3. So I want to go through all stages here. That's an orange color. It's easy to find. And the observation is about 2 children here. Eliana's mom and baby brother came to visit our class today. Everyone took turns reading to baby Eliana. And Eliana said, start again. Eliana said to read to baby brother Brown Bear book because it's his favorite. While Claire turned the pages, Eliana talked to her brother in a high-pitched voice, repeating the words of the book and announcing clearly, Brown Bear, what do you see? It seems that she remembers this story by heart. So this is an observation that is social. Yes, so we can see that there are 3 children involved. And if we observe these girls who are preschoolers, we can see that they enjoy playing with other children, including children who are younger than them. We can see that these 2 children probably have a particular friend, Eliana and Claire. You can see that they share, smile, cooperate with peers. So they're involved in collaborative activity, reading to a baby brother. They also jointly manipulate objects, in our case a book, and they definitely collaborate and share. They are getting on with others, yes, really well. And it seems that they do meet this EYLF outcome 1. Children have a strong sense of identity, learn to interact in relation to others with empathy, care, and respect. Also, there is an understanding of baby brother likes this book, and they read it to this baby brother and showing empathy and showing good understanding of his needs, which is now the beginning of a new way of thinking, not egocentric thinking, but more, I would say, more empathetic thinking. Yeah. If we look at emotional, we can see some things here as well. For example, may have stronger preference for same-sex playmates. So there are 2 girls, they're playing, and you can see that that's quite a strong preference. If we look at language as well, we can see that if the child is reading a book, they speak in sentences and use many different words. You also can see that they tell stories, yeah, and you can see that they enjoy talking and may like to experiment with new words. We can see that they use they take part in conversation about what baby brother likes. But if you look a little bit deeper, you can find in the EYLF outcome 5 engaged with text. So here 5, children engage with a range of text and gain meaning from these texts. So the child obviously able to view printed text, in our case a book, and respond with comments or even read this book. So here we can see that they take on roles of literacy play, and in our case reading a book as if you are an adult, and begin to understand literacy processes, in our case how to read books, yeah, the way the texts are structured. So this is a lot from here you can find to add to your analysis, such as Eliana able to recognize and engage with written culturally constructed text. She also engaged in oral culturally constructed text because she technically is not reading but reciting it by heart. Retell simple stories in a logical sequence using a range of materials. In our case, she is using a book, but if child is using puppets or dramatic play, that's what you would add. So this is how you use these two wonderful books, and using these expressions such as follows simple instructions or recalls events correctly, because when I ask them to set up tables for lunch, or I said that it's lunchtime, child said that we need to wash our hands, but first we need to pack up, and then we need to sit down and wait for our lunch, and I'll get a trolley. So it might be a little bit messy in terms of how they recall events, but the structure and sequence is there. So I hope you enjoyed looking at this book. There are a few other things that you can look at within this book. For example, this one. It's all about stages of development. So this is about how children develop. And you also can find, as I said, a lot of specific books on milestones. Now we also have apps, but I suggest you using academically I would say sound resources such as Karen Karen's books and Julie, I think it's Julie Burke book for understanding child's development. There are many books that you can get for free in the library as well, and they go through milestones, and the internet of course, but remember to use the sources that we consider to be good valid sources, usually peer-reviewed or published by department, which is by default created by people who are experienced. So I hope you will find this document beneficial. Please post in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Watch the other one about EYLF and tell me if you want more videos like this one. Bye for now.